Hi everyone. Welcome to week 6 of English 1302. From time to time you may see me wearing a cap. It's simply a place marker. The way my computer queues up the videos. Sometimes often I make several videos in a row, and if I have some distinguishing mark like a name tag or a tie or a cap, it just helps me to remember what each one is for. Anyway, hope you had a good weekend. Today is Monday, February the 17th, and we're at the beginning of week 6. All right, two things. First of all, we are in the second week of the short story unit, and I hope you're enjoying it, or at least you're finding it less troublesome than the drama unit. The short stories, according to Edgar Allan Poe, any piece of writing that can be consumed in one sitting. So they're fairly short, but I've already given you a tool which will help more than anything else. Now, I know it's just a little bit of work, but if you'll print out one of these for each short story, so 2 for last week, 2 for this week, I think 3 for next week, print one of these out and just fill it out as you go. The name of the story, The Shroud by the Brothers Grimm. Short, little 1 or 2 sentence plot summary. Who's the main character? Who or what works against him or her? Where's the story set? Now, some of them won't have any. Like, for example, there may not be any symbolism. There may not be any foreshadowing. There may not be any irony. But there's always going to be a style. And of course, the theme is the big one. If you don't get anything other than the plot summary, the characters, the theme, and the useful literary theory, that will help you more than anything else. The rest of them are kind of gravy on top of the biscuit, or cherry on top of the sundae, banana split. Anyway, very, 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 very helpful. I strongly encourage you. Let me also remind you that you are more than welcome to attend either one of my 2 in-person classes. I have a class that meets Monday nights at 7 p.m. and another one that meets Thursday nights at 5:30 p.m. We are at the Lubbock downtown campus, which is on 13th and Avenue Q, just behind the Prosperity Bank. And I hope you'll join us. We get a lot of good discussion going on. Let me give you some hints. Okay, we did last week already, but the 2 stories for this week, the cask of Amontillado and the Shroud. The Shroud's pretty easy. It's just there as an explanation to show you that a story doesn't have to be really, really long in order to have all the necessary parts in order for it to make sense. Just a story about a little boy who died and his mother won't stop crying. Now, you do want to look at why she won't stop crying until the ghost appears and says, "Mom, stop crying. I can't get any rest." Be sure you know what a shroud is. A shroud is a piece of material like a sheet that they use to cover a dead person. But then we get to Edgar Allan Poe, and when we talk in class, I'll often ask students, who's your favorite author? A lot of people will say Edgar Allan Poe, and I don't blame them. Poe's a good author. His writing style is unique. His subject matter is unique. His plots are certainly unique. But the cask of Amontillado. Amontillado is just a pale, dry sherry, but it's expensive. And during Mardi Gras, during Carnival, it's hard to get hold of, especially in quantity. And so when Montresor says he has a big cask of it, and the word cask means barrel, but it sounds a lot like the word casket. Poe is famous for his word choice. He chooses the best word. And even when he has to go back in history, he chooses these words that are anachronistic, which are out of time. Some of his words were old and worn out and out of use even when he was alive. And by the way, I need to post something up for you. There's a story, a biography of him. He really lived a fascinating life and died a fascinating death, and there's a lot we don't know. But anyway, so the Cask of Amontillado, the thing to keep in mind is, of course, the use of the unreliable narrator. If you think, well, maybe the narrator's not telling us the exact truth, then you have to ask, okay, which parts are true, which parts are not true? Is any of this true? Is this just a figment of his imagination? There's one important line to pay attention to, and of course that is close to the end. It's either the last sentence or the second to the last sentence, which says all this happened 50 years ago. So if it happened 50 years ago, he's playing an old man, and when old men tell stories, they're often talking to their priest. This may be a deathbed confession, or it may be an instance of insanity or mental illness. Um, just fascinating. Also, how did Fortunato die? Probably not suffocation, although, and of course you can argue any of these. I'm thinking probably not suffocation, and probably not lack of food. I'm thinking probably lack of water. You can go for as many as 10 days without food, especially since he was a larger, jovial man. And but you can only go for about 3 days without water. And dying of thirst, dying of dehydration is a particularly bad way to go. But the setting, where and when. This is set in the catacombs, which were an ongoing, continuous tunnel underneath the city and underneath the river. This is probably set in Italy, where there are a lot of catacombs, and it's set during Mardi Gras, during Carnival. Mardi Gras, even today, go to New Orleans. It's a big festival, a big blowout, a big party right before Lent. Lent is 40 days of prayer and fasting and repentance leading up to Easter, or actually leading up to Good Friday, just before Easter. But it's a bacchanalia. It's a big free-for-all, Burning Man set across the entire city. So why does Poe choose these things? Well, now, as we said, Poe's a good author, and so your second research assignment is not based on Poe. I'm sorry. It's based on another good author, a guy named William Faulkner. Remember Rose for Emily? Well, this is a story called Barn Burning. Now, of course, you want to read the assignment sheet and read it carefully and follow it diligently. I've tried to make it as clear as possible, but I'm happy to answer any question that you may have about the assignment sheet. I'm in the process of grading your papers. I should have them all finished here in just a couple of days, but be sure to look at the comments. To find the comments, you go back to where you turned it in at, which is under research writing, that module, and then you click on that blue link called R1. It's got the little turn it in symbol there. Click on that, and then when you do that, it'll pull up your paper and my comments. On my screen, the general comments are on the right-hand side, and the specific comments are little bubbles that appear above the words. One of my students told me that the general comments appear along the bottom, but either on the right-hand side or on the bottom, I'm sure you'll find them. The assignment sheet says to read the story, Barn Burning by William Faulkner. Don't just glance at it. Don't read over it. Don't skim it. Don't glance at it. You want to really read it carefully. Take notes. Jot down ideas in the margins. Highlight important ideas. And think about what he's saying. This is another masterpiece. This is another great example of American short story, American fiction. Now, it's not easy. Okay, it's going to be challenging, but if you go through it 2 or 3 times and take notes as you go through, you'll really get a lot out of it. There's a lot there to find. There's many gold nuggets buried in this side of the mountain. But there's one sentence I want to share with you and then talk to you about what it means. It's the second sentence of the short story Barn Burning by William Faulkner. The boy, crouched on his nail keg at the back of the crowded room, knew he smelled cheese and more. From where he sat, he could see the ranked shelves close packed with the solid, squat, dynamic shapes of tin cans whose labels his stomach read, not from the lettering which meant nothing to his mind, but from the scarlet devils and the silver curve of fish. This, the cheese which he knew he smelled, and the hermetic meat which his intestines believed he smelled, coming in intermittent gusts, momentary and brief, between the other constant one, the smell and sense just a little of fear, but because mostly of despair and grief, the old fierce pull of blood. Yeah, blood's one of our themes. But man, what a sentence. That thing's got to have like 15 different clauses in it. And William Faulkner writes this way on purpose. He writes in a very confusing manner because the subject is a confusing subject. And so he's wanting his writing style to reflect the ideas he's trying to get across. It's already Sardi's the main character. That's him thinking, but Sardi does live in confusing times. It's very helpful to get the character straight. Sardi is the little boy. His father is named Abner Snopes. If you look him up, you'll find out that he's a character from the Bible, the Old Testament. He was one of the generals of King David who turned traitor and benefited one of David's enemies. Interesting piece of history. But yeah, it's just, it's about economics, it's about family. Now, when they say blood, they mean family. You've heard the expression, blood is thicker than water. It means that family ties are stronger than work ties or legal ties or like that. And Sardi does speak with a really deep Southern accent when he says to his mother, "Leave me alone, hit don't hurt." He's saying, or he says, "Let me be, hit don't hurt." It means leave me alone because it doesn't hurt. He got beat up by a bigger boy, but he got his own back. Now, why did he burn barns? Why did Abner Snopes burn the barns of the men he felt had wronged him? Less likely to kill somebody, and unless you kill somebody, they're not going to hang you, unless you steal horses. But it's more of an economic attack than anything. And as you go through the story, you're going to find just example after example of all this happening. There are 4 kids who are named, the 2 daughters who are bovine, and I've forgotten their names, it's not mentioned in the story. Sardi, of course, is the main character, the protagonist, and he has a brother who also not named, but we know from another story that his name is Phlegm. The 2 daughters are described as bovine, which means very cow-like. They're very slow acting, slow thinking, don't do very much. But Sardi looks a lot like his father, small, tough, wiry, and he grows up during the course of the story. In fact, it's called a coming-of-age story because he has to make a decision between doing what he's been taught all his life, that is that you stick to your blood or you don't have no blood to stick to you, so you stick with your family no matter what, or doing the right thing, obeying his moral conscience. And I'll let you get to the end of the story to read that. But read the assignment sheet, and it asks you, select one of the words from the vocabulary list, like symbol, foil, character, theme, irony, and discuss it in the short story. If I were going to do this one, I would probably either do setting, very important in the story, or there's a little bit of foreshadowing, you might be able to handle that one, but character, the protagonist, Sardi, when he grows up, coming of age story, that would be a fascinating paper to read and to write. Or, of course, there's some symbolism in there with the carpet and the shit stain, and it really is a fun read. I hope you'll enjoy it. But go ahead and read it now, let it sit for a couple days, and come back and read it again later. I know it's not due till March the 9th, and you're thinking, oh, I've got a long time. And I know what you're also thinking. You're thinking, well, isn't that the day before? No, I'm sorry. Wrong one. It's due March the 9th. My other class is turning in one the Sunday before spring break, but y'all's is due Sunday, March the 9th. Okay, if you have any questions, let me know, and we will talk some more later.